It's two for Tuesday. We're going to war today, fam. Sting, I'm really happy to see that Haro is still alive and well, even with the younger generation. That's fun. Rar XD. All right. We've got 2 chapters to do tonight, so we're just gonna get going. Cause come on, giddy up, let's go. Come on. All right, we're gonna start with chapter 5, the ride of the Rohirrim. Someone left a comment on my rant of the Rohirrim video that I pronounced Rohirrim wrong. So if you're a pedant about pronunciation, I apologize in advance. But let's get going with Book 5, Chapter 5, The Ride of the Rohirrim. I hope everyone's doing well. I'm kind of getting over this cold, so I'm going to try and get through all of this. Sting, you are a full 10 years younger than I am, so just keep that in mind. Chapter 5, The Ride of the Rohirrim. It was dark, and Mary could see nothing as he lay on the ground rolled in a blanket. Yet, though the night was airless and windless, all about him hidden trees were sighing softly. He lifted his head. Then he heard it again, a sound like faint drums in the wooded hills and mountain steps. The throb would cease suddenly, and then be taken up again at some other point, now nearer, now further off. He wondered if the watchman had heard it. He could not see them, but he knew that all round him were the companies of the Rohirrim. He could smell the horses in the dark, and could hear their shiftings and their soft stamping on the needle-covered ground. The host was bivouacked in the pine woods that clustered about Eilenach Beacon, a tall hill standing up from the long ridges of the Druidan forest that lay beside the great road in East Anorian. Tired as he was, Mary could not sleep. He had ridden now for 4 days on end, and the ever-deepening gloom had slowly weighed on his heart. He began to wonder why he'd been so eager to come, when he'd been given every excuse, even his lord's command, to stay behind. I wonder. He wondered, too, if the old king knew that he had been disobeyed and was angry. Perhaps not. There seemed to be some understanding between Dernhelm and Elfhelm, the helms. Elfhelm the marshal, who commanded the Eored in which they were riding. He and all his men ignored Mary and pretended not to hear if he spoke. He might have been just another bag that Dernhelm was carrying. Dernhelm was no comfort. He never spoke to anyone. Mary felt small, unwanted, and lonely. Now the time was anxious, and the host was in peril. They were less than a day's ride from the outwalls of Minas Tirith that encircled the townlands. Scouts had been sent ahead. Some had not returned. Others, hastening back, had reported that the road was held in force against them. A host of the enemy was encamped upon it, 3 miles west of Amondine, and some strength of men was already thrusting along the road and was no more than 3 leagues away. Orcs were roving in the hills and woods along the roadside. The king and Eomer held council in the watches of the night. Mary wanted someone to talk to, and he thought of Pippin, but that only increased his restlessness. Poor Pippin, shut up in the great city of stone, lonely and afraid. Mary wished he was a tall rider like Eomer and could blow a horn or something and go galloping to his rescue. He sat up, listening to the drums that were beating again, now nearer at hand. Presently he heard voices speaking low, and he saw dim, half-shrouded lanterns passing through the trees. Men nearby began to move uncertainly in the dark. A tall figure loomed up and stumbled over him, cursing the tree roots. He recognized the voice of Elfhelm, the marshal. "I am not a tree root, sir," he said, "nor a bag, but a bruised hobbit. The least you can do in amends is to tell me what is afoot." "Anything that can keep so in this devil's murk," answered Elfhelm, "but my lord sends word that we must set ourselves in readiness. Orders may come for a sudden move." "Is the enemy coming, then?" said Mary anxiously. "Are those their drums? I began to think I was imagining them, as no one else seemed to take any notice of them." "Nay, nay," said Elfhelm. "The enemy is on the road, not in the hills. You hear the wozes, the wild men of the woods. Thus they talk together from afar. They still haunt Druidan forest, it is said. Remnants of an older time they may be. Oh, they be, not they may be. They be. Living few and secretly, wild and wary as the beasts. They go not to war with Gondor or the Mark, but now they are troubled by the darkness and the coming of the orcs. They fear lest the dark years be returning, as seems likely enough. Let us be thankful that they are not hunting us. For they use poisoned arrows, it is said, and they are woodcrafty beyond compare. But they have offered their services to Theoden. Even now, one of their headmen is being taken to the king. Yonder go the lights. So much I have heard, but no more. And now I must busy myself with my lord's commands. Pack yourself up, Master Bag. He vanished into the shadows. Master Bag is such a good read. Get him. Mary did not like this talk of wild men and poisoned darts, but quite apart from that, a great weight of dread was on him. Waiting was unbearable. He longed to know what was going to happen. He got up and soon was walking warily in pursuit of the last lantern before it disappeared among the trees. All right, what's everyone saying? Stupid. I love you idiots. All right, 1 second. Sorry. Gross. Yuck. Okay. Presently, he came to an open space where a small tent had been set up for the king under a great tree. A large lantern, covered above, was hanging from a bough and cast a pale circle of light below. There sat Theoden and Eomer, and before them on the ground sat a strange squat shape of a man, gnarled as an old stone, and the hairs of his scanty beard straggled on his lumpy chin like dry moss. He was short-legged and fat-armed, thick and stumpy, and clad only with grass about his waist. Mary felt that he had seen him before somewhere, and suddenly he remembered the Pukal men of Dunharrow. Here was one of these old images brought to life, or maybe a creature descended in true line through endless years from the models used by the forgotten craftsmen long ago. Master Bag. I do have a lot of thoughts about Bag End, Baggins, and Bags as it relates to Ursula K. Le Guin's essay, The Carrier Bag Theory of Fiction. When I'm done talking about hobbits, I'm going to be talking about that. You can fucking bet your ass. There was a silence as Mary crept nearer, and then the wild man began to speak in answer to some question, it seemed. His voice was deep and guttural, yet to Mary's surprise he spoke the common speech, though in a halting fashion, and uncouth words were mingled with it. No, father of horsemen, he said, we fight not, hunt only, kill Gorgon in woods, hate orc folk. You hate Gorgon too. We help as we can. Wild men have long ears and long eyes, know all paths. Wild men live here before stone houses, before tall men come up out of water. But our need is for aid in battle, said Eomer. How will you and your folk help us? Bring news, said the wild man. We look out from hills. We climb Big Mountain and look down. Stone City is shut. Fire burns there outside, now inside too. You wish to come there? Then you must be quick. But Gorgoon and men out of far away, he waved a short gnarled arm eastward, sit on horse road. Very many, more than horsemen. How do you know that? Said Eomer. The old man's flat face and dark eyes showed nothing, but his voice was sullen with displeasure. Wild men are wild, free, but not children, he answered. I am great headman, Gon Buri Gon. I count many things, stars in sky, leaves on trees, men in the dark. You have a score of scores counted 10 times in 5. They have more. Big fight, and who will win? And many more walk round walls of stone houses. Alas, he speaks all too shrewdly, said Theoden, and our scouts say that they have cast trenches and stakes across the road. We cannot sweep them away in sudden onset. And yet we need great haste, said Eomer. Mundburg is on fire. Let Gonburigon finish, said the wild man. Manners. More than one road he knows. He will lead you by road where no pits are, no Gorgon walk, only wild men and beasts. Many paths were made when Stonehouse folk were stronger. They carved hills as hunters carve beast flesh. Wild men think they ate stone for food. They went through Druidan to Rimmon with great wains. They go no longer. Road is forgotten, but not by wild men. Over hill and behind hill it lies still under grass and tree, there behind Rimmon and down to Dean, and back at the end to Horsemen's Road. Wild men will show you that road. Then you will kill Gorgoon and drive away bad dark with bright iron, and wild men can go back to sleep in the wild woods. Eomer and the king spoke together in their own tongue. At length, Theoden turned to the wild man. We will receive your offer, he said, for though we leave a host of foes behind, what matter? If the stone city falls, then we shall have no returning. If it is saved, then the orc host itself will be cut off. If you are faithful, Gonburigan, then we will give you rich reward, and you shall have the friendship of the mark forever. Why use many word when few word do trick? Very good, very good. Dead men are not friends to living men, and give them no gifts, said the wild man. But if you live after the darkness, then leave wild men alone in the woods, and do not hunt them like beasts any more. Gonburigan will not lead you into trap. He will go himself with father of horsemen, and if he leads you wrong, you will kill him. So be it, said Theoden. How long will it take to pass by the enemy and come back to the road? Asked Eomer. We must go at foot pace if you guide us, and I doubt not the way is narrow. Wild men go quick on feet, said Gon. Nickname, that's so cute. Way is wide for 4 horses in Stonewain Valley yonder. He waved his hand southwards, but narrow at beginning and at end. Wild man could walk from here to Dean between sunrise and noon. Then we must allow at least 7 hours for the leaders, said Eomer, but we must reckon rather on some 10 hours for all. Things unforeseen may hinder us, and if our host is all strung out, it will be long ere it can be set in order when we issue from the hills. What is the hour now? Who knows, said Theoden. All is night now. But also, like, do they use any kind of timekeeping device? I still don't know. It is all dark, but it is not all night, said Gon. When sun comes, we feel her, even when she is hidden. Already she climbs over east mountains. It is the opening of day in the sky fields. Then we must set out as soon as may be, said Eomer. Even so, we cannot hope to come to Gondor's aid today. Merry waited to hear no more, but slipped away to get ready for the summons to the march. This was the last stage before the battle. It did not seem likely to him that many of them would survive it. But he thought of Pippin and the flames in Minas Tirith and thrust down his own dread. "Ah, my brave boy." All went well that day, and no sight or sound had they of the enemy waiting to waylay them. The wild men had put out a screen of wary hunters, so that no orc or roving spy should learn of the movements in the hills. The light was more dim than ever as they drew nearer to the beleaguered city, and the riders passed in long files like dark shadows of men and horses. Each company was guided by a wild woodman, but old Gon walked beside the king. The start had been slower than was hoped, for it had taken time for the riders, walking and leading their horses, to find paths over the thickly wooded ridges behind their camp and down into the hidden Stonewain Valley. It was late in the afternoon when the leaders came to wide gray thickets stretching beyond the eastward side of Amondine, and masking a great gap in the line of hills that from Nardal to Dean ran east and west. Through the gap, the forgotten Wain road long ago had run down, back into the main horseway from the city through Anorian, but now for many lives of men trees had had their way with it, and it had vanished, broken and buried under the leaves of uncounted years. Bars. But the thickets offered to the riders their last hope of cover before they went into open battle, for beyond them lay the road and the plains of Anduin, while east and southwards the slopes were bare and rocky, as the writhen hills gathered themselves together and climbed up, bastion upon bastion, into the great mass and shoulders of Mindalluin. All right. So, like, we did talk about clocks in the Shire and how they're, like, kind of an anachronism. And how, like, you know, the rules are made up and the points don't matter. Hang on, sorry, I need to blow my nose again. Oh, gross. Thank you for your patience. I'm dying of the lurgy. All right. right back in. What's everyone's favorite Middle-earth kingdom or location? Stings is Rohan. Mine is a hard toss-up between Minas Tirith and the Shire, so do with that what you will. Yeah, I'm still sick, unfortunately. It's lingering. But do you have to let it linger? Do you have to? Do you have to let it linger? All right. The leading company was halted, and as those behind filed up out of the Woo! Let me start again. Whoa! The leading company was halted, and as those behind filed up out of the trough of the Stonewain Valley, they spread out and passed to camping places under the gray trees. The king summoned the captains to council. Eomer sent out scouts to spy upon the road, but old Gon shook his head. It is a comfort to me that y'all are asking if I'm sick, because I can hear that I'm sick. And one of my bosses earlier was like, "Oh, do you have a cold?" Like, you can hear it. I'm really ready for this to not be the way it is now. I'm so tired of it. No good to send horsemen, he said. Wild men have already seen all that can be seen in the bad air. They will come soon and speak to me here. The captains came, and then out of the trees crept warily other pukul shapes, so like old Gon that Mary could hardly tell them apart. They spoke to Gon in a strange, throaty language. Sting, I'm also a horse girl, so solidarity. Presently, Gon turned to the king. Wild men say many things, he said. First, be wary. Still many men encamp beyond Dean, an hour's walk yonder. He waved his arm west towards the black beacon. But none to see between here and Stonefolk's new walls. Many busy there. Walls stand up no longer. Gorgoon knock them down with earth thunder and with clubs of black iron. They are unwary and do not look about them. They think their friends watch all roads. At that, old Gon made a curious gurgling noise, and it seemed that he was laughing. He's so cute. I love Gonvody Gon. Good tidings, cried Eomer. Even in this gloom, hope gleams again. Even in this gloom, hope gleams again? Ugh, bars! Gloom and gleam, come on, so good. It's so simple. It's so simple, it's so effective. I love it. Our enemy's devices oft serve us in his despite. The accursed darkness itself has been a cloak to us. And now, lusting to destroy Gondor and throw it down stone from stone, his orcs have taken away my greatest fear. The outwall could have been held long against us. Now we can sweep through, if once we win so far. Once again, I thank you, Gonburi Gon of the Woods, said Theoden. Good fortune go with you for tidings and for guidance. Kill Gorgoon, kill orc folk. No other words please wild men, answered Gon. Drive away bad air and darkness with bright iron. To do these things we have ridden far, said the king, and we shall attempt them. But what we shall achieve only tomorrow will show. Gonburi Gon squatted down and touched the earth with his horny brow in token of farewell. Then he got up as if to depart, but suddenly he stood looking up like some startled woodland animal sniffing a strange air. A light came in his eyes. Wind is changing, he cried, and with that, in a twinkling as it seemed, he and his fellows had vanished into the glooms, never to be seen by any rider of Rohan again. Not long after, far away eastward, the faint drums throbbed again. Yet to no heart in all the host came any fear that the wild men were unfaithful, strange and unlovely though they might appear. Excuse me. We need no further guidance, said Elfhelm, for there are riders in the host who have ridden down to Mundburg in days of peace. I, for one. When we come to the road, it will veer south, and there will lie before us still 7 leagues ere we reach the wall of the townlands. Along most of that way there is much grass on either side of the road. On that stretch the errand riders of Gondor reckon to make their greatest speed. We may ride it swiftly and without great rumor. Then, since we must look for fell deeds in the need of all our strength, said Eomer, I counsel that we rest now, and set out hence by night, so time our going that we come upon the fields when tomorrow is as light as it will be, or when our Lord gives the signal. To this the king assented, and the captains departed. But soon Elfhelm returned. The scouts have found naught to report beyond the grey wood, lord, he said, save 2 men only, 2 dead men and 2 dead horses. Well, said Eomer, what of it? This, lord, they were errand riders of Gondor. Hirgon was one, maybe. At least his hand still clasped the red arrow, but his head was hewn off. And this also. It would seem by the signs that they were fleeing westward when they fell. As I read it, they found the enemy already on the outwall, or assailing it when they returned, and that would be 2 nights ago if they used fresh horses from the posts, as is their wont. They could not reach the city and turned back. Oh, they could not reach the city and turned back. Alas, said Theoden, then Denethor has heard no news of our writing and will despair of our coming. The emotional management of Denethor is fucking crazy. Need brooks no delay, yet late is better than never, said Eomer. And mayhap in this time shall the old saw be proved truer than ever before since men spoke with mouth. Whoa, Eomer, and mayhap in this time shall the old saw be proved truer than ever before since men spoke with mouth. All right, dude. It was night. On either side of the road, the host of Rohan was moving silently. Now the road passing about the skirts of Mindalluin turned southward. Far away and almost straight ahead there was a red glow under the black sky, and the sides of the great mountain loomed dark against it. They were drawing near the Ramas of the Pelennor, but the day was not yet come. The king rode in the midst of the leading company, his household men about him. Elfhelm's Eored came next, and now Merry noticed that Durnhelm had left his place and in the darkness was moving steadily forward, until at last he was riding just in rear of the king's guard. There came a check. Merry heard voices in front speaking softly. Outriders had come back who had ventured forward almost to the wall. They came to the king. There are great fires, lord, said one. The city is all set about with flame, and the field is full of foes, but all seem drawn off to the assault. As well as we could guess, there are few left upon the outwall, and they are heedless, busy in destruction. Do you remember the wild man's words, lord? Said another. I live upon the open wold in days of peace. Woodfara is my name, and to me also the air brings messages. Already the wind is turning. There comes a breath out of the south. There is a sea tang in it, faint though it be. The morning will bring new things. Above the reek it will be dawn when you pass the wall. If you speak truly, Woodfara, then may you live beyond this day in years of blessedness, said Theoden. He spoke to the men of his household who were near, and he spoke now in a clear voice so that many also of the riders of the first Eored heard him. Now is the hour come, riders of the Mark, sons of Errol. Foes and fire are before you, and your homes are far behind. Yet, though you fight upon an alien field, the glory that you reap there shall be your own forever. Oaths ye have taken, now fulfill them all, to lord and land and league of friendship. Men clashed spear upon shield. Eomer, my son, you lead the first Eored, said Theoden, and it shall go behind the king's banner in the center. Elfhelm, lead your company to the right when we pass the wall, and Grimbold shall lead his toward the left. Let the other companies behind follow these 3 that lead as they have chance. Strike wherever the enemy gathers. Other plans we cannot make, for we know not how things stand. For we know not yet how things stand upon the field. Forth now, and fear no darkness. The leading company rode off as swiftly as they could, for it was still deep dark, whatever change Woodfara might forebode. Merry was riding behind Durnhelm, clutching with the left hand, while with the other he tried to loosen his sword in its sheath. He felt now bitterly the truth of the old king's words. In such a battle, what would you do, Meriadoc? Just this, he thought, encumber a rider, and hope at best to stay in my seat and not be pounded to death by galloping hoofs. Very optimistic. It was no more than a league to where the outwalls had stood. They soon reached them, too soon for Merry. Wild cries broke out, and there was some clash of arms, but it was brief. The orcs busy about the walls were few and amazed, and they were quickly slain or driven off. Before the ruin of the north gate and the Ramas, the king halted again. The first Eored drew up behind him, and about him on either side. Durnhelm kept close to the king, though Elfhelm's company was away on the right. Grimbold's men turned aside and passed round to a great gap in the wall further eastward. Mary peered from behind Dernhelm's back. Far away, maybe 10 miles or more, there was a great burning, but between it and the riders, lines of a fire blazed in a vast crescent at the nearest point less than a league distant. He could make out little more on the dark plain, and as yet he neither saw any hope of morning, nor felt any wind, changed or unchanged. Now silently the host of Rohan moved forward into the field of Gondor, pouring in slowly but steadily, like the rising tide through breaches in a dike that men have thought secure. But the mind and will of the Black Captain were bent. Oh my god, this is what I get for dog-earing pages. Were bent wholly on the falling city, and as yet no tidings came to him warning that his designs held any flaw. After a while, the king led his men away somewhat eastward to come between the fires of the siege and the outer fields. Still they were unchallenged, and still Theoden gave no signal. At last, he halted once again. The city was now nearer. A smell of burning was in the air, and a very shadow of death. The horses were uneasy. But the king sat upon Snowmane, motionless, gazing upon the agony of Minas Tirith as if stricken suddenly by anguish or by dread. He seemed to shrink down, cowed by age. Merry himself felt as if a great weight of horror and doubt had settled on him. His heart beat slowly. Time seemed poised in uncertainty. They were too late. Too late was worse than never. Perhaps Theoden would quail, bow his old head, turn, slink away to hide in the hills. But then suddenly, Merry felt it at last, beyond doubt. A change. Wind was in his face. Light was glimmering. Far, far away in the south, the clouds could be dimly seen as remote gray shapes, rolling up, drifting. Morning lay beyond them. But at that same moment there was a flash, as if lightning had sprung from the earth beneath the city. For a searing second it stood dazzling, far off in black and white, its topmost tower like a glittering needle. And then, as the darkness closed again, there came rolling over the fields a great boom. At that sound the bent shape of the king sprang suddenly erect. Tall and proud he seemed again, and rising in his stirrups he cried in a loud voice, more clear than any there had ever heard a mortal man achieve before. Arise, arise, riders of Theoden! Fell deeds awake, fire and slaughter. Spear shall be shaken, shield be splintered. A sword day, a red day, ere the sun rises. Ride now, ride now, ride to Gondor. With that he seized a great horn from Guthloth his banner-bearer, and he blew such a blast upon it that it burst asunder. And straightway all the horns in the host were lifted up in music, and the blowing of the horns of Rohan in that hour was like a storm upon the plain and a thunder in the mountains. Ride now, ride now, ride to Gondor. Suddenly the king cried to Snowmane, and the horse sprang away. Behind him his banner blew in the wind, white horse upon a field of green, but he outpaced it. After him thundered the knights of his house, but he was ever before them. Eomer rode there, the white horsetail on his helm floating in his speed, and the front of the first Eored roared like a breaker foaming to the shore. But Theoden could not be overtaken. Fey he seemed, or the battle fury of his fathers ran like new fire in his veins, and he was borne up on Snowmane like the god of old, even as Orome the Great in the battle of the Valar when the world was young. His golden shield was uncovered, and lo, it shone like an image of the sun, and the grass flamed into green about the white feet of his steed. For morning came, morning and a wind from the sea, and darkness was removed, and the hosts of Mordor wailed, and terror took them, and they fled and died, and the hoofs of wrath rode over them. And then all the host of Rohan burst into song, and they sang as they slew, for the joy of battle was on them, and the sound of their singing that was fair and terrible came even to the city. Got him! It's so fucking good! Okay, quick check-in before we move on. Physical acting? Yes, Marxaldehyde. If you tell me that someone is bent and broken and being cowed by the weight of something, I can't help it. I gotta do it. And then, okay, this little passage Someone in my comments pointed out that it's like Theoden's like a fucking Norse warrior, which, like, sure, fine, whatever. But I prefer my reading, which is that the riders of Rohan are very much motivated by the promise of an honorable death on the battlefield. Like, they are fucking ready to go. Theoden is born up on Snowmane like a god of old, which is where the, like, Norse connection comes from. I do understand that. I get it. But also, I think it's a little bit, I don't know. I like the hoofs of wrath rode over them. Like, they're just one huge force. It's not about individual riders. It's about them as one entire force motivated by death. None of them really think they're going to survive this, but they're so fucking hot for it. We might as well keep going, right? Okay, chapter 6, the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. Let's fucking get it, dude. But it was no orc chieftain or brigand that led the assault upon Gondor. The darkness was breaking too soon, before the day that his master had set for it. Fortune had betrayed him for the moment, and the world had turned against him. Victory was slipping from his grasp even as he stretched out his hand to seize it. But his arm was long. He was still in command, wielding great powers. King, Ringwraith, Lord of the Nazgul, he had many weapons. He left the gate and vanished. Dude, we are so fucking back. Let's go. Theoden, king of the Mark, had reached the road from the gate to the river, and he turned towards the city that was now less than a mile distant. He slackened his speed a little, seeking new foes, and his knights came about him, and Durnhelm was with them. Ahead nearer the walls, Elfhelm's men were among the siege engines, hewing, slaying, driving their foes into the fire pits. Well nigh all the northern half of the Pelennor was overrun, and their camps were blazing. Orcs were flying towards the river like herds before the hunters, and the Rohirrim went hither and thither at their will. But they had not yet overthrown the siege, nor won the gate. Okay, Noodle, come on, honey. Come on. Good girl. Good girl, you go to your bed. Yes. Many foes stood before it, and on the further half of the plain were other hosts still unfought. Southward, beyond the road, lay the main force of the Haradrim, and there their horsemen were gathered about the standard of their chieftain. And he looked out, and in the growing light he saw the banner of the king, and that it was far ahead of the battle with few men about it. Then he was filled with a red wrath, and shouted aloud, and displaying his standard, black serpent upon scarlet, he came against the white horse and the green with great press of men, and the drawing of the scimitars of the Southrons was like a glitter of stars. Then Theoden was aware of him, and would not wait for his onset, but crying to Snowmane, he charged headlong to greet him, dog. Great was the clash of their meeting, but the white fury of the Northmen burned the hotter, and more skilled was their knighthood with long spears and bitter. Fewer were they, but they clove through the Southrons like a firebolt in a forest. Right through the press drove Theoden, Thingol's son, and his spear was shivered as he threw down their chieftain. Out swept his sword, and he spurred to the standard, hewed staff and bearer, and the black serpent foundered. Then all that was left unslain of their cavalry turned and fled far away. Fucking got him, dude. Fucking got him. Oh, yeah. Minnie is a good girl. She's a very good girl. We got two good girls on the chat here today. We got Noodle and we got Min. They're both good girls. But lo, suddenly in the midst of the glory of the king, his golden shield was dimmed. The new morning was blotted from the sky. Dark fell about him. Horses reared and screamed. Men cast from the saddle lay groveling on the ground. To me, cried Theoden. Up, Eorlingus, fear no darkness. But Snowmane, wild with terror, stood up on high, fighting with the air, and then with a great scream he crashed upon his side. A black dart had pierced him. The king fell beneath him. The great shadow descended like a falling cloud, and behold, it was a winged creature. If bird, then greater than all other birds, and it was naked, and neither quill nor feather did it bear, and its vast pinions were as webs of hide between horned fingers, and it stank. A creature of an older world maybe it was, whose kind, lingering in forgotten mountains cold beneath the moon, outstayed their day, and in hideous eerie bred this last untimely brood, apt to evil. Bars! And the Dark Lord took it, and nursed it with fell meats, until it grew beyond the measure of all other things that fly. and he gave it to his servant to be his steed. Down, down it came, and then, folding its fingered webs, it gave a croaking cry and settled upon the body of Snowmane, digging in its claws, stooping its long, naked neck. Upon it sat a shape, black-mantled, huge and threatening. A crown of steel he bore, but between rim and robe naught was there to see, save only a deadly gleam of eyes, the lord of the Nazgul. To the air he had returned, summoning his steed ere the darkness failed, and now he was come again, bringing ruin, turning hope to despair and victory to death. A great black mace he wielded. Even though in the movies it's a morning star. But Theoden was not utterly forsaken. The knights of his house lay slain about him, or else mastered by the madness of their steeds were borne far away. Yet one stood there still, Dernhelm the young, faithful beyond fear, and he wept, for he had loved his lord as a father. Right through the charge, Merry had been borne unharmed behind him, until the shadow came, and then Wynfilla had thrown them in his terror, and now ran wild upon the plain. Merry crawled on all fours like a dazed beast, and such a horror was on him that he was blind and sick. Yes, I think Morningstar Flail combo, right? Am I getting my melee weapons confused? Please help me. I know the flail has the chain. Whatever. Someone Google this. I'm busy. I'm reading. King's man, his heart cried within him. You must stay by him. As a father you shall be to me, you said. But his will made no answer, and his body shook. He dared not open his eyes or look up. Then, out of the blackness in his mind, he thought that he heard Dernhelm speaking. Yet now the voice seemed strange, recalling some other voice that he had known. Begone, foul Dwimmerlake, lord of Carrion. Leave the dead in peace. A cold voice answered. Come not between the Nazgul and his prey, or he will not slay thee in thy turn. He will bear thee away to the houses of lamentation, beyond all darkness, where thy flesh shall be devoured, and thy shriveled mind be left naked to the lidless eye. A sword rang as it was drawn. Do what you will, but I will hinder it, if I may. Hinder me? Now, thou fool, no living man may hinder me. Yeah, as I thought. Okay, maces are chainless. Sorry, I thought I was losing my marbles. A flail has a chain, because the end of it flails around, right? A mace is just the big fucking, like Sauron in the movie and Fellowship of the Ring in the prologue has a mace, right? Ron, stop. You can't make me visualize the fucking Witch King with the Groucho Marx fucking disguise on, dude. We're in the middle of the serious part of the book. Fuck. Okay, I need that art like now. I need that art now. If anyone can draw me the Witch King, but with like a little disguise with the mustache, with the glasses, I will pay you. I will fucking commission your ass. Oh my fucking god, that's so funny. That really hit me. All right. I'm gonna go back a little bit because this part fucking whips ass. All right. Begone, foul Dwimmerlake, lord of Carrion. Leave the dead in peace. A cold voice answered. Come not between the Nazgul and his prey, or he will not slay thee in thy turn. He will bear thee away to the houses of lamentation beyond all darkness, where thy flesh shall be devoured, and thy shriveled mind be left naked to the lidless eye. A sword rang as it was drawn. Do what you will, but I will hinder it if I may. Hinder me, thou fool. No living man may hinder me. Then Merry heard of all sounds in that hour the strangest. It seemed that Dernhelm laughed, and the clear voice was like the ring of steel. But no living man am I. You look upon a woman. Eowyn I am, Eowyn's daughter. You stand between me and my lord and kin. Begone if you be not deathless. For living or dark undead, I will smite you if you touch him. The winged creature screamed at her, but the ringwraith made no answer and was silent as if in sudden doubt. He's checking the rules. He's thinking like, oh man, a woman? What the fuck? That wasn't in the prophecy. Very amazement for a moment conquered Mary's fear. He opened his eyes, and the blackness was lifted from them. There, some paces from him, sat the great beast, and all seemed dark about it, and above it loomed the Nazgul lord like a shadow of despair. A little to the left, facing them, stood she whom he had called Durnhelm. But the helm of her secrecy had fallen from her, and her bright hair, released from its bonds, gleamed with pale gold upon her shoulders. Her eyes, gray as the sea, were hard and fell, and yet tears were on her cheek. A sword was in her hand, and she raised her shield against the horror of her enemy's eyes. Eowyn it was, and Durnhelm also, for into Mary's mind flashed the memory of the face that he saw at the riding from Dunharrow, the face of one that goes seeking death, having no hope. Pity filled his heart and great wonder, and suddenly the slow-kindled courage of his race awoke. He clenched his hand. She should not die, so fair, so desperate. At least she should not die alone, unaided. The face of their enemy was not turned toward him, but still he hardly dared to move, dreading lest the deadly eyes should fall on him. Slowly, slowly he began to crawl aside, but the black captain, in doubt and malice intent upon the woman before him, heeded him no more than a worm in the mud. Suddenly, the great beast beat its hideous wings, and the wind of them was foul. Again it leaped into the air, and then swiftly fell down upon Eowyn, shrieking, striking with beak and claw. Okay, hang on, chat, real quick. So it's like, okay, so a morning star is like a rectangle, and a flail is like a square. Because not all, wait, yeah, not all rectangles are squares, but all squares are rectangles. So I'm into this. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure any bullshit I throw at Matt at this point, he would at least humor me. Where's Durnhelm? More like Laura Durnhelm. Got him! Fucking got him! And yeah, I do like that part in the special features where it's like, just make it as big as you can. Just make the weapon as big as you possibly fucking can. It's so funny. There are also flails that are not morning stars. I need a chart. I need some kind of chart. So good. I'm loving this. I love to learn as a group. This is fun. I like this. All right. Please continue educating me about handheld spiky weapons, and we'll continue murdering the Witch King if that's okay. All right. Still, she did not blench. Maiden of the Rohirrim, child of kings, slender but as a steel blade, fair yet terrible. A swift stroke she dealt, skilled and deadly. The outstretched neck she clove asunder, and the hewn head fell like a stone. Backward she sprang as the huge shape crashed to ruin. Vast wings outspread, crumpled on the earth, and with its fall the shadow passed away. A light fell about her, and her hair shone in the sunrise. Out of the wreck rose the Black Rider, tall and threatening, towering above her. With a cry of hatred that stung the very ears like venom, he let fall his mace. Her shield was shivered in many pieces, and her arm was broken. She stumbled to her knees. He bent over her like a cloud, and his eyes glittered. He raised his mace to kill. But suddenly, he too stumbled forward with a cry of bitter pain, and his stroke went wide, driving into the ground. Mary's sword had stabbed him from behind, shearing through the black mantle and passing up beneath the hauberk had pierced the sinew behind his mighty knee. Ouch. Fucking back of the knee, dude. Ooh, brutal. Fucking savage type of shit. Ooh. Eowyn, Eowyn, cried Mary. Then, tottering, struggling up, with her last strength, she drove her sword between crown and mantle as the great shoulders bowed before her. The sword broke, sparkling into many shards. The crown rolled away with a clang. Eowyn fell forward upon her fallen foe. But lo, the mantle and hauberk were empty. Shapeless they lay now on the ground, torn and tumbled, and a cry went up into the shuddering air and faded to a shrill wailing, passing with the wind, a voice bodiless and thin that died and was swallowed up and was never heard again in that age of this world. Mm, 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 ooh. You gotta fucking love it. You gotta love the little guy that everyone said, no, you can't come. No, 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 no. No, you can't come over and over. And the woman where everyone was like, no, 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 you can't come either. Da 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 da. They get the fucking job done. Ugh. Sorry, I need to direct my husband about groceries. Give me 1 second. Okay. Boop. Yeah, I need a good Venn diagram or a chart. I can make this chart. Like, someone, Zephyr, if you have a good resource, which I know you do, send me that and I'll make the chart. I fucking love making a chart. Excuse me. My husband also says hi to your husband. Namaste. The husband with me recognizes the husband within you. Oh, great. Hello. Me wife says hi to you wife and you husband and also you wife and child. Namaste. All right. And there stood Meriadoc the Hobbit in the midst of the slain, blinking like an owl in the daylight. For tears blinded him, and through a mist he looked on Eowyn's fair head, as she lay and did not move. And he looked on the face of the king, fallen in the midst of his glory. For Snowmane in his agony had rolled away from him again, yet he was the bane of his master. Fucking Snowmane, dude, come on, you had one job. Then Merry stooped and lifted his hand to kiss it, and lo, Theoden opened his eyes, and they were clear, and he spoke in a quiet voice, though labored. Farewell, Master Holbitla, he said. My body is broken. I go to my father's, and even in their mighty company I shall not now be ashamed. I felled the black serpent, a grim morn, and a glad day, and a golden sunset. Mary could not speak, but wept anew. Forgive me, Lord, he said at last, if I broke your command, and yet have done no more in your service than to weep at our parting. The old king smiled. Grieve not. It is forgiven. Great heart will not be denied. Live now in blessedness, and when you sit in peace with your pipe, think of me. For never now shall I sit with you in Meduseld as I promised, or listen to your herb lore. He closed his eyes, and Mary bowed beside him. Presently he spoke again. Where is Eomer? For my eyes darken, and I would see him ere I go. He must be king after me, and I would send word to Eowyn. She would not have me leave her, and now I shall not see her again, dearer than daughter. Lord, Lord, began Mary brokenly, she is... But at that moment there was a great clamor, and all about them horns and trumpets were blowing. Mary looked round. He had forgotten the war, and all the world beside, and many hours it seemed since the king rode to his fall, though in truth it was only a little while. Fucking Jesus Christ. Tolkien's trying to fucking kill me. Ugh. But now he saw that they were in danger of being caught in the very midst of the great battle that would soon be joined. New forces of the enemy were hastening up the road from the river, and from under the walls came the legions of Morgul, and from the southward fields came footmen of Harad with horsemen before them, and behind them rose the huge backs of the Mumakil, with war towers upon them. But northward, the white crest of Eomer led the great front of the Rohirrim, which he had again gathered and marshaled, and out of the city came all the strength of men that was in it, and the silver swan of Dol Amroth was borne in the van, driving the enemy from the gate. Y'all are amazing. Thank you, Zephyr. D&D Weapons Manual is, I think, probably the Bible we need for this. Dude, my Lord Durnhelm does a great Eowyn impression. Is like, let's get Durnhelm over here. Do your best Eowyn for the king. Come on. For a moment, the thought flitted through Mary's mind. Where is Gandalf? Is he not here? Could he not have saved the king and Eowyn? Oops, we know he's a little bit busy. But thereupon Eomer rode up in haste, and with him came the knights of the household that still lived and had now mastered their horses. They looked in wonder at the carcass of the fell beast that lay there, and their steeds would not go near. But Eomer leaped from the saddle, and grief and dismay fell upon him as he came to the king's side and stood there in silence. Then one of the knights took the king's banner from the hand of Guthloth the banner-bearer, who lay dead, and he lifted it up. Slowly, Theoden opened his eyes. Seeing the banner, he made a sign that it should be given to Eomer. "Hail, King of the Mark," he said. "Ride now to victory. Bid Eowyn farewell." And so he died, and knew not that Eowyn lay near him. And those who stood by wept, crying, "Theoden King, Theoden King." But Eomer said to them, "Mourn not overmuch. Mighty was the fallen, meet was his ending. When his mound is raised, women then shall weep. War now calls us." Yet he himself wept as he spoke. "Let his knights remain here," he said, "and bear his body in honor from this field, lest the battle ride over it. Yea, and all those other of the king's men that lie here." And he looked at the slain, recalling their names. And then suddenly he beheld his sister Eowyn as she lay, and he knew her. He stood a moment as a man who is pierced in the midst of a cry by an arrow through the heart, and then his face went deathly white, and a cold fury rose in him, so that all speech failed him for a while. A fey mood took him. Everybody fey. All the Rohirrim fey today. "Eowyn, Eowyn," he cried at last. "Eowyn, how come you here? What madness or devilry is this? Death! 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 Death take us all!" Then, without taking counsel or waiting for the approach of the men of the city, he spurred headlong back to the front of the great host and blew a horn and cried aloud for the onset. Over the field rang his clear voice calling, "Death! Ride now to ruin and the world's ending." And with that the host began to move, but the Rohirrim sang no more. "Death!" they cried with one voice loud and terrible, and gathering speed like a great tide, their battles swept about their fallen king and passed, roaring away southwards. And still Meriadoc the Hobbit stood there, blinking through his tears, and no one spoke to him. Indeed, none seemed to heed him. He brushed away the tears, and stooped to pick up the green shield that Eowyn had given him, and he slung it at his back. Then he looked for his sword that he'd let fall, for even as he struck his blow, his arm was numbed, and now he could only use his left hand. And behold, there lay his weapon, but the blade was smoking like a dry branch that had been thrust in a fire, and as he watched it, it writhed and withered and was consumed. So passed the sword of the Barrow Downs, work of Westerness. But glad would he have been to know its fate who wrought it slowly long ago in the North Kingdom, when the Dunedain were young, and chief among their foes was the dread realm of Angmar and its sorcerer king. No other blade, not though mightier hands had wielded it, would have dealt that foe a wound so bitter, cleaving the undead flesh, breaking the spell that knit his unseen sinews to his will. Fucking bars! And also, I fucking love that in the Barrow Downs, Mary got this sword, and it's like the only weapon that could have actually made contact with the Witch King effectively. Can you imagine what kind of fucking game master or DM Tolkien would have been? Oh my fucking god, dude. Crazy. Take this. You'll need it for later. All right, let's see. Fresh Prince put a good chart in the Discord. Yo! Again, if you're not in the Discord, tell me in the chat and I'll find a way to get you in there so we can review the resources. Imagining one of the Flight of the Conchords guys. Is it just me or does Durnhelm look kind of hot right now? It's not just you. Durnhelm looks fucking great. All right, fam. We're getting through it. We're nearly there. Let's go. Drop the link in the chat if there's a fucking video of Tolkien as a DM, babe. I want to see it. Let's go. Men now raised the king, and laying cloaks upon spear truncheons, they made shift to bear him away towards the city, and others lifted Eowyn gently up and bore her after him. But the men of the king's household they could not yet bring from the field, for 7 of the king's knights had fallen there, and Daerwine, their chief, was among them. So they laid them apart from their foes and the fell beast, and set spears about them. And afterwards, when all was over, men returned and made a fire there and burned the carcass of the beast. But for Snowmane they dug a grave and set up a stone upon which was carved in the tongues of Gondor and the mark: faithful servant, yet master's bane, Lightfoot's foal, swift Snowmane. I'm sure he was also a sweet horse. Also love that we know that he's Lightfoot's foal. Like, even in Middle Earth, they cannot resist horsey nomenclature and bloodlines. Green and long grew the grass on Snowmane's howe, but ever black and bare was the ground where the beast was burned. A little heavy-handed there. Now slowly and sadly Merry walked beside the bearers, and he gave no more heed to the battle. He was weary and full of pain, and his limbs trembled as if with a chill. A great rain came out of the sea, and it seemed that all things wept for Theoden and Eowyn, quenching the fires in the city that with grey tears. It was through a mist that presently he saw the van of the men of Gondor approaching. Imrahil, prince of Dol Amroth, rode up and drew rein before them. "What burdens do you bear, men of Rohan?" he cried. "Theoden king," they answered. "He is dead, but Eomer king now rides in the battle, he with the white crest in the wind." Excuse me. Then the prince went from his horse and knelt by the bier in honor of the king at his great onset, and he wept. And rising, he looked then on Eowyn and was amazed. "Surely here is a woman," he said. "Have even the women of the Rohirrim come to war in our need?" "Nay, one only," they answered. "The Lady Eowyn is she, sister of Eomer, and we knew not of her riding until this hour, and greatly we rue it." Then the prince, seeing her beauty, though her face was pale and cold, touched her hand as he bent to look more closely on her. "Men of Rohan," he cried, "she is sexy." No, I'm kidding. "Men of Rohan," he cried, "are there no leeches among you? She is hurt, to the death maybe, but I deem that she yet lives." And he held the bright burnished vambrance that was upon his arm before her cold lips, and behold, a little mist was laid on it, hardly to be seen. "Haste now is needed," he said, and he sent one riding back swiftly to the city to bring aid. But he, bowing low to the fallen, bade them farewell, and mounting, rode away into battle. Sorry, I really need to stop retconning Tolkien. I know it's like highly disrespectful or whatever, but it's also hilarious. Excuse me. I'm so sorry, guys. And now the fighting waxed furious on the fields of the Pelennor, and the din of arms rose upon high, with the crying of men and the neighing of horses. Horns were blown and trumpets were braying, and the Mumakil were bellowing as they were goaded to war. Under the south walls of the city, the footmen of Gondor now drove against the legions of Morgul that were still gathered there in strength, but the horsemen rode eastward to the succor of Eomer. Nope, the succor of Eomer, Hurin the Tall, Warden of the Keys, and the Lord of Lasarnik, and Hirluin of the Great Hills, Hirluin of the Green Hills, pardon me, and Prince Imrahil the Fair with his knights all about him. Sorry, I'm distracted. My husband needs further grocery guidance. Give me 1 second. Sorry. Okay. I think I'm good. I think I'm good now. Let's see. All right, we back. Sorry, fam. Not too soon came their aid to the Rohirrim, for fortune had turned against Eomer, and his fury had betrayed him. The great wrath of his onset had utterly overthrown the front of his enemies, and great wedges of his riders had passed clear through the ranks of the Southrons, discomfiting their horsemen and riding their footmen to ruin. But wherever the Mumakil came, there the horses would not go, but blenched and swerved away, and the great monsters were unfought, and stood like towers of defense, and the Haradrim rallied about them. And if the Rohirrim at their onset were thrice outnumbered by the Haradrim alone, soon their case became worse, for new strength came now streaming to the field out of Osgiliath. There they had been mustered for the sack of the city and the rape of Gondor, waiting on the call of their captain. He now was destroyed, but Gothmog, the lieutenant of Morgul, had flung them into the fray. Easterlings with axes, and Veriags of Khand, Southrons in scarlet, and out of far Harad black men like half-trolls with white eyes and red tongues. Some now hastened up behind the Rohirrim, others held westward to hold off the forces of Gondor and prevent their joining with Rohan. It was even as the day thus began to turn against Gondor and their hope wavered that a new cry went up in the city, it being then mid-morning, and a great wind blowing, and the rain flying north, and the sun shining. In that clear air, watchmen on the walls saw afar a new sight of fear, and their last hope left them. For Anduin, from the bend at the Harlond, so flowed that from the city men could look down it lengthwise for some leagues, and the far-sighted could see any ships that approached. And looking thither, they cried in dismay, for black against the glittering stream they beheld a fleet borne up on the wind, dromons, and ships of great draught with many oars, and with black sails bellying in the breeze. The Corsairs of Umbar, men shouted. The Corsairs of Umbar, look! The Corsairs of Umbar are coming. So Belfalas is taken, and the Ethir, and Lebanon is gone. The Corsairs are upon us. It is the last stroke of doom. And without some order, for none could be found to command them in the city, ran to the bells and told the alarm, and some blew the trumpets sounding the retreat. Back to the walls, they cried. Back to the walls! Come back to the city before all are overwhelmed. But the wind that sped the ships blew all their clamor away. Excuse me. Okay, usually I do the grocery shopping, so forgive me. I'm so sorry. The Rohirrim indeed had no need of news or alarm. All too well they could see for themselves the black sails, for Eomer was now scarcely a mile from the Harlond, and a great press of his first foes was between him and the haven there, while new foes came swirling behind, cutting him off from the prince. Now he looked to the river, and hope died in his heart, and the wind that he had blessed he now called accursed. But the hosts of Mordor were enheartened, and filled with a new lust and fury, they came yelling to the onset. Literally, yeah. Yes. Yes, you know it is. Stern now was Eomer's mood, and his mind clear again. He let blow the horns to rally all men to his banner that could come thither, for he thought to make a great shield wall at the last, and stand and fight there on foot till all fell, and do deeds of song on the fields of Pelennor, though no man should be left in the west to remember the last king of the Mark. So he rode to a green hillock, and there set his banner, and the white horse ran rippling in the wind. Out of doubt, out of dark to the day's rising, I came singing in the sun, sword unsheathing. To hope's end I rode, and to heart's breaking. Now for wrath, now for ruin, and a red nightfall. These staves he spoke, yet he laughed as he said them, for once more lust of battle was on him, and he was still unscathed, and he was young, and he was king, the lord of a fell people. And lo, even as he laughed at despair, he looked out again on the black ships, and he lifted up his sword to defy them. Fucking get it, Eomer. I love it. He's like, I'm unhurt, I'm young, and I'm king. You can't fucking kill me if you tried. I look forward to it. And then wonder took him, and a great joy, and he cast his sword up in the sunlight and sang as he caught it, and all eyes followed his gaze, and behold, Upon the foremost ship a great standard broke, and the wind displayed it as she turned towards the Harland. There flowered a white tree, and that was for Gondor, but 7 stars were about it, and a high crown above it, the signs of Elendil that no lord had borne for years beyond count. And the stars flamed in the sunlight, for they were wrought of gems by Arwen, daughter of Elrond, and the crown was bright in the morning, for it was wrought of mithril and gold. Thus came Aragorn, son of Arathorn, Elessar, Isildur's heir, out of the paths of the dead, borne upon a wind from the sea to the kingdom of Gondor. And the mirth of the Rohirrim was a torrent of laughter and a flashing of swords, and the joy and wonder of the city was a music of trumpets and ringing of bells. But the hosts of Mordor were seized with bewilderment, and a great wizardry it seemed to them that their own ships should be filled with their foes. Fucking idiots. And a black dread fell on them, knowing that the tides of fate had turned against them, and their doom was at hand. East rode the knights of Dol Amroth, driving the enemy before them, trollmen and variags and orcs that hated the sunlight. South strode Eomer, and men fled before his face, and they were caught between the hammer and the anvil. For now men leaped from the ships to the quays of the Harlan and swept north like a storm. There came Legolas, and Gimli wielding his axe, and Halberad with the standard, and Elladan and Elrohir with stars on their brow, and dour-handed Dunedain, rangers of the north, leading a great valor of the folk of Lebanon and Lamadon and the fiefs of the south. But before all went Aragorn with the flame of the west, Andúril like a new fire kindled, Narsil reforged as deadly as of old, and upon his brow was the star of Elendil. Like, they're fucking dripped up, draped out, fucking sorted up, weapons to hand. Let's fucking go! Y'all ready for this? And so at length, Eomer and Aragorn met in the midst of the battle, and they leaned on their swords and looked on one another and were glad. Can you fucking picture the scene, dude? Oh, I love it. Thus we meet again, though all the hosts of Mordor lay between us, said Aragorn. Did I not say so at the Hornburg? So you spoke, said Eomer, but hope oft deceives, and I knew not then that you were a man foresighted. Yet twice blessed is help unlooked for, and never was a meeting of friends more joyful. And they clasped hand in hand. Nor indeed more timely, said Eomer. You come none too soon, my friend. Much loss and sorrow has befallen us. Then let us avenge it ere we speak of it, said Aragorn, and they rode back to battle together. Fucking guys being dudes, bros beyond. I love it. God damn. I'm so horny for this chapter right now. Hard fighting and long labor they had still, for the Southrons were bold men and grim and fierce in despair, and the Easterlings were strong and war-hardened and asked for no quarter. And so in this place and that, by burned homestead or barn, upon hillock or mound, under wall or on field, still they gathered and rallied and fought until the day wore away. Then the sun went at last behind Mindalluin and filled all the sky with a great burning, so that the hills and the mountains were dyed as with blood. Fire glowed in the river, and the grass of the Pelennor lay red in the nightfall. And in that hour the great battle of the field of Gondor was over, and not one living foe was left within the circuit of the Ramas. All were slain save those who fled to die, or to drown in the red foam of the river. Few ever came eastward to Morgul or Mordor, and to the land of the Haradrim came only a tale from far off, a rumor of the wrath and terror of Gondor. Aragorn and Eomer and Imrahil rode back towards the gate of the city, and they were now weary beyond joy or sorrow. These three were unscathed, for such was their fortune and the skill and might of their arms, and few indeed had dared to abide them or look on their faces in the hour of their wrath. But many others were hurt or maimed or dead upon the field. The axes hewed forlong as he fought alone and unhorsed, and both Dwelin of Morthond and his brother were trampled to death when they assailed the Mumakil, leading their bowmen close to shoot at the eyes of the monsters. Neither Hirluin the Fair would return to Pinath Gelen, nor Grimbold to Grimslade, nor Halberad to the Northlands, dour-handed ranger. No few had fallen, renowned or nameless, captain or soldier, for it was a great battle, and the full count of it no tale has told. So long afterward, a maker in Rohan said in his song of the mounds of Mundburg, we heard of the horns in the hills ringing, the sword shining in the south kingdom. Steeds went striding to the stoning land, as wind in the morning. War was kindled. There Theoden fell, Thengling mighty, to his golden halls and green pastures in the northern fields never returning. High lord of the host, Harding and Guthlaf, Dunhair and Daerwine, doughty Grimbold, Herfara and Herubrand, Horn and Fastred, fought and fell there in a far country. In the mounds of Mundburg under mold they lie, with their league fellows, lords of Gondor. Neither hear Lewin the fair to the hills by the sea, nor Forlong the old to the flowering vales ever, to Arnok to his own country returned in triumph, nor the tall bowmen, Derufin and Duilin, to their dark waters, mares of Morthond under mountain shadows. Death in the morning and at day's ending lords took and lowly. Long now they sleep under grass in Gondor by the great river. Grey now as tears, gleaming silver, red then it rolled, roaring water. Foam dyed with blood flamed at sunset, as beacons mountains burned at evening. Red fell the dew in Ramas Ekor. And that's that. We did it. Next up, Pyre of Denethor. We'll do that next week. Holy shit, buddy. Holy shit, buddy. All right, let's go. Chat. Daddy is home. I'd follow his gaze for sure. He's dreamy. He looks good. He's got a crown on. My king? Returning? The return of my king? It's more likely than you think. Walk into the battle purse first. Aragorn, do you think that love can bloom on a battlefield? Like, literally. It's the way they're truly doing the, bros! Like, it's so fucking good. Eowyn instantly wakes up waiting for his answer. It's the way that everyone knows that Eowyn's sexy and she's only pining for Aragorn, and Prince Imrahil is after it. Faramir gets after it. I'm pretty sure Merry and Eowyn is one of my favorite fun ships to play with. There's so much, dude. There's so fucking much. But yeah, I really enjoy we get the high-low of the mode and tone in these chapters, where when we're with Merry, everything is much easier to understand. But when we're with Eomer and Theoden, and when we're looking upon Aragorn, and when we're with the prince, there's that kind of higher tone of prose that Tolkien likes to use. The prose that people find difficult to read, that's kind of hard to trudge through the first few times you read it. I enjoy that contrast in these chapters. And I love how death is a motivator for the Rohirrim. They ride to glory in battle, and it's, even if they fall in battle, it's still glorious. There's no shame in that. And if they succeed and survive, that's wonderful too. And yeah, I just love that. I love Eomer and Aragorn meeting on the battlefield and being fucking took you long enough. We've been having a bad time. And Aragorn's yeah, but do you see all this drip I got? Do you see all these fucking peeps I got with me? It took me a minute to call everyone up and get them all together. Let's go slay. It's so fucking good. It's fucking awesome. Everyone has perfect timing too. Mwah. 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 I love it. And then next week it gets really fucking dark again, but we'll get to that when we get to it. So it is 6:15. AO3 is the fanfic sub. Get on there if you haven't already. In any other universe where Eowyn isn't up against the reincarnation of Luthien. Yeah, exactly. She never stood a chance. All right. I am gonna go look at the Discord and see what we've got for a visual aid for Mace versus Flail versus Morningstar. There it is. AU, alternate universe. Thank you guys so much for coming and joining me. This was a fun one. I really liked doing two at once. And you can't really separate these chapters. Indeed, it's hardly possible to separate you two, even when one is supposed to be a stream in 1 week and the other is not. But yeah, this was fun. Love y'all. I'll see you next week. Keep an eye on the channel. Keep an eye on the Discord. Keep an eye on the Instagram. I'll fucking let you know what's happening. Have a good night. Wait, Otaris, love that Aragorn got all dressed up for Denethor and arrived 20 minutes late to show his fit. Genuinely fucked up that he didn't get to flex on Denethor. Like, that's always gonna be a bummer. All right, love y'all. Toodaloo.